Okay, guys, here I am, back again. Welcome back to another episode of Rantings and Ravings. Yes! Here we are. I'm glad to be here, glad to be back. It's kind of a gloomy day outside. We are having some fires in our area, so I can't really tell if it's smoke or if it's fog up there. But whatever, you know how it is. You might be wondering, we brought the mic back. No, I didn't. It's the real mic. I'm just holding this because I like to hold something, but I felt like I would look stupid if I had the mic on like another little thing to make a microphone. I have a microphone. I'm just going to hold this and pretend like I'm talking into this microphone. Okay? How does everyone feel like that about that? That's what I'm going to do for this episode. And for this episode, speaking of which, today I promised last week, or last episode, I promised that we were going to talk about something less dark. And I'm fulfilling my promise in the sense that it's something I actually like, and so therefore I will talk about it, I think, in a much more jovial sense. I will be much happier talking about this topic than I was talking about the last two. And today, that topic is we are talking about Fallout. Wow! Yes, we're talking about the video game Fallout. The video games Fallout, I should say. And then we're also going to talk about the TV show. Oh, I was going to wear my Fallout t-shirt. Well, if I change spontaneously in the middle of this video into a Fallout t-shirt, you'll know why. And that's because we're talking about Fallout. I've been a long time video game fan. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I grew up playing video games, and not like anything crazy, just like Lego. I played Call of Duty as a child, way too young. And that's mainly because That's mainly because Call of Duty 2 or World War II traumatized me immensely, in the sense that if you know, you know, and then the end, right? I was probably 9 or 10 when I played that for the first time. Altered my life entirely. Anyway, I also grew up playing all the Lego games. I talked about that. And I've also grew up playing Bethesda games. So Oblivion, Fallout 3, and then Skyrim and Fallout 4. And I haven't played the space one. But that's just because, I don't know, I don't have the space one. I only play the ones that I have. Like, I played the games that my brother had. Oh, I also played Spyro. Any of you guys remember Spyro? Shout out to Spyro. If you guys remember Spyro, let me know. Loved Spyro. Anyway, longtime video game fan. And in the past couple years, like, I haven't played as many video games as I do. I watch a lot about video games. I have so many different creators, like on YouTube specifically, that I follow who talk about video games, who play video games, and I like consume all this content through there. And specifically, I watch a lot of people who talk about Bethesda games, Elder Scrolls, and the Fallout universe. Shout out to Frankly Gaming, Fudge Muppet, Shades of Slay, Epic Nate. I just recently discovered a new one that I kind of like, Constellations Gaming. And these are people who know so much more about all of this than I do. Okay? We're not doing a lore deep dive. We cannot. I cannot. I can't handle it. My brain doesn't process that. I like to watch videos about it. So if you like to watch videos about it, and if that's what you want, go check out some of those names. I'll link them down below so that you can find them. They're genuinely amazing, amazing creators. And there's probably so many more that I don't even know about, that I didn't even mention. Yeah, so I play Fallout and I watch an obscene amount of content surrounding it. I literally spent 4th of July this year, 250 years, celebrating the United States of America. I celebrated by playing Fallout and drinking a bottle of wine. So I felt like that was pretty patriotic of me. We're talking about Fallout. I'm just going to talk about the video games, and then I'm going to talk about the TV show, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. I'm going to tell you all the things I love about it, and I'm going to tell you why you think you should play it and or watch it and or watch videos about it, because it's fun, okay? It's fun, and that's kind of the basics of it. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an expert. I'm not an expert. I don't even know like when half of the games take place, or even necessarily where some of them take place. I know that Fallout 76 takes place in 76 in Appalachia. I know that. And I know that Fallout 4 takes place in Boston, and Fallout New Vegas takes place in Las Vegas, Nevada. She's so smart. She's so smart. we're going to talk about the games that I've played, because full disclosure, I haven't played all of them. Again, like I said, I only play what I had available to me, and that was Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. I'm going to talk about the world building, the aesthetics, like what I love about the world that they've created, and the story, the stories. There's several of them. And then I'm going to talk about the characters, I guess. I love the characters. I think the characters are well done. So I'll talk about them. And then I'm going to talk about the TV show and everything I love about the TV show. And one more thing before we get really started is that I'm planning on this being like a part 1 of 2, in that in a part 2, I want to talk about Elder Scrolls, and I want to talk about everything I love about the games and the lore and the history in the same way we do this one. But then I kind of want to dive into a little bit of like creative thing. I don't know. And I want to try to proposition a few of my own ideas of if they were to make an Elder Scrolls TV show, what I think they should make it about, and how they think they should do it, and how I think they should hire me on to be a costume designer. So, anyway, sorry about that. Okay, we're starting with the games. So I mentioned briefly earlier that I've only played Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. I know, don't crucify me. I get it. I get that Fallout New Vegas is the best Fallout. I hear you. I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm listening. I have not the game. I have not the game, so I cannot play the game. I could get the game, but I don't have it, and I don't have the money to buy it. And also, I have a PS4. I don't even know if they make it for a PS4, okay? So I watch videos about New Vegas, but I haven't played it physically myself. And when it comes to that, I play a lot of Fallout 4. A lot of Fallout 4. If I'm playing Fallout, it's Fallout 4. Again, because I have a PS4, and that's the one I have it on. Our Fallout 3 we had on the Xbox, and I don't really play the Xbox anymore. You got to charge the controllers, and our controllers are never charged. Yeah, so that's kind of my background with the Fallout games. And I guess where my bias is going to come in is that I'm a mainly Fallout 4 player, and then when it comes to the lore and everything else, I consume it secondhand through other people. Okay? And if that makes you not want to watch, that's fine. I don't care. We're going to start by talking about the world building of this universe. And something that always fascinates me so much about like world building in our world, in the sense of you're taking the world that we currently live in and then changing it for the sake of your story. I think it's always really fascinating to see what they do with it. And I think the creators and developers of the Fallout universe, they're not only Bethesda games. The first two, I believe just the first two, were made by a different company, a different video game company, and then Bethesda bought it and made more. But whoever they were, I don't remember what their names are. I'll put it somewhere. But they just created a really fascinating world that we get to explore so in depth, which I think is really, really fun. And in making all the games in different places and in different times, you just get a feel like every time there's a new installment, a new piece of the world sort of starts to make sense. And I think that's really cool. For context, all of the Fallout games take place in the United States. They talk a lot about the geopolitics of the world. We'll get into it in a moment, but they talk about a lot what's going on in the world before the bombs fell outside of the United States. But once we get to the actual gameplay, you don't get to play outside the United States. But in the TV show, there is a few scenes of Walton Goggins fighting a war in Alaska, which I know is in the United States, but it's the farthest we get, okay? So that's the context. We're in the US post-nuclear fallout. And for those of you who don't know or might not know, this is not our world one for one. There was at some point in the past a divergence in the timeline where that is debated widely among fans, as far as I'm aware. Epic Nate has a really great video on the timeline of the Fallout universe where he talks about a lot of that and the divergence of the timeline. But you can see a lot of where things start going differently, especially in the mid 1900s. Different presidents are elected. There's just so much stuff happening. And then there's all the geopolitics of it all, and then the bombs, and then the fallout. And that's where we are. We're in the fallout. What I love specifically about how they did this world building was that there's a surface level where, as you as a player are just dropped into this world, and you get to learn about how the world functions now, and factions and guns and weaponry and food and flora and fauna, and like this new world that has been created by the fallout. And if that's all you really want it to be, is like a 1950s if that's all you want it to be, a 1950s retrofuturistic post-apocalyptic world where sometime in the past that is sort of like our world but isn't, and you don't really care about all those in-depth details about what happened, you don't have to know about it. Like, you don't need all that context to still enjoy this great game. And yeah, like, you can understand without knowing what happened in the world before the world that you're in. You meet all the people. There's two kind of categories of people in this world. There's the people who escaped the fallout through escaping in vaults, and then there's everyone else who survived. And those everyone else who survived, you have different factions. Speaking of which, the different factions, Frankly Gaming did just release a video on all the different factions in Fallout, and I started watching it, and it's amazing, so go watch it. But you have the Brotherhood of Steel, you have the Enclave, which did exist pre-war, but like, you don't have to know that, really, for the game to make sense. You know what I'm saying? You have the Raiders, you have the NCR, you have the Children of Atom, you have Dunwich, and you have the Legion and Shady Sands, and like all of these different factions of people who survived, and this is how they survived. And then you have like the vault dwellers, the people who survived in the vaults and then were released. And the more you dig into any one of those factions, yes, you're going to learn more, but if you just want a surface level understanding of the world, you can have it. And there's no like other than not having more information, there's no drawback in the storyline or the characters if you don't understand who the Enclave was, or who the Master is, or how super mutants came to be. And like, that's the fascinating part to me, is before I started watching these deep dives into Fallout lore, I didn't know that ghouls existed pre-war. I was like, well, obviously the ghouls are because people got radiated, and this is just how their body responded to the massive amounts of radiation, obviously. And that's what made sense to me. And some people became feral, and some people got to keep some of their consciousness, and it just depends from person to person. Who even cares? And same with the super mutants. I was like, they just existed because of the nuclear radiation, which would make sense. And that was a fine, like, I didn't need any more information than that to play the game, to understand the game, to have a good time playing the game. But there is that deeper truth behind everything that just fills in the world for those people who want that, and who need that, and who have so many questions, and who want them all answered. And so many of them are. And so many other questions are posited. Why is there a Mothman? Hey, why does Mothman exist in this world? I don't know, but he does, and he has a whole cult. He has a whole cult, Mothman does. And there's cosmic horror elements. There's this place I mentioned earlier called Dunwich, and there's an obelisk, and it makes ghouls or something, and it makes people go crazy. There's witches sometimes, whatever Constance is, or Constantine, whatever her name is. There's Lazarus, who has a mask or a hat that he found, and he's like hundreds of years old. Even from before the war, he was already, you know what I'm talking about? There are other things that are happening, timelines, and then you talk about Robco, and you talk about House, and you talk about this guy, and you talk about that guy, and like, when you delve into it, there is so much to know. That is so fascinating. The number of times that I've heard people in these videos that I like to watch say something like, and then you have to go into the video game file within the actual game to find the truth behind, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I'm so happy you're doing that. Why did you think to even have done that? I didn't even think that was an option, but they do it. Or they no clip, I know my lingo, my video game lingo. They be no clipping, like, to see things. I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing it, and they're getting answers to questions I didn't even know to ask. That's how in-depth this world is, and the developers are giving them the answers. They're hiding it a little bit, but they're giving them the answers because they know the answers. And that's how you know when you have like a very well built world, is when you posit questions and then that you have the answers to, and you make it accessible to people who really want to know it. And I think that's one thing that I love so much about Fallout is you can go one way or the other. You can take the world for what it is, just what you see on screen, which is what I do most of the time, or you can dig into more of it, the history, the geopolitics. Where is China in this world? What are they doing? Where is Russia in this world? What are they doing? Because in our world, the Cold War was mainly between the US and Russia, and like the tension between capitalism and communism and all of that kind of stuff. And China was an aspect, Cuba was an aspect, and where are these entities in this Fallout universe? And there are answers to those questions within the gameplay. And not just the gameplay, they also have tabletop games where they have these, or books where you can like look into this information. And so it's not all available right there just in the video game, but I think that's okay. It doesn't have to be. There's just so much to it. It's so full of life, and I love it. And I love it. And when we talked about 28 Days Later in one of my first videos of this channel, I talked about how I don't love a post-apocalypse or zombie movie or anything where like nihilism is the end all be all of everything sucks and nothing matters, and no matter how good you try to be, everything is going to be bad always. There are elements of that in Fallout, but there are also pockets of hope and like beacons of light that are so entrancing to me. You can play the game as someone who wants to make the world a better place. You don't have to play the game. That's what makes role-playing games like this so much fun, is you get to decide who your character is and how your character is engaging in the world. And me being me, like that's what Fallout 4, why it's so fun for me, is I love the settlements. Are they annoying sometimes? Yeah, they are. But I love being able to help people and like watch the settlements grow and see people become happier and like build a world in this world. I really like that. And even just like Diamond City, it's not perfect, it's not a perfect place, but there is life there and rebuilding and hope even in the midst of all this chaos. And even the children of Adam, in some sense, when you go to the glowing sea and you find them there, like they're happy-ish, right? They're having a good time. And that's something I really like. And you can just go around killing all the raiders who are evil and awful and purge the world of their treachery and vileness. And I love that. I love that. It's not all doom and gloom all the time. And that's something that I struggle with a lot with post-apocalypses, as I've discussed before, and I'll probably discuss again. Doom and gloom is not my favorite thing ever. I like to have a little bit of hope, just a little, as a treat. Hello? I guess that was a really long ramble about the world building and how in-depth it is, and what also I guess is really fascinating to me is you have these overarching like things, geopolitics, you have the Enclave, you have the Brotherhood of Steel, these overarching themes and storylines that kind of cross games and cross the whole continent or the whole world, ghouls and all these kinds of things. But you also have small pockets of peoplehood, I guess, that are really well developed in a sense. Oh, like, I don't know. I lost it. But like, there's so much within it that it's like, even the small people and the small things, like they still have as much depth and importance as the big things. I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is the little things are just as important as the big things, and you can really dive into those little things. You don't have to only be worrying about the Institute, only be worrying about the Brotherhood of Steel. There are smaller things that are happening that are fascinating and that have importance and that have just as much depth as all the other stuff, you know? I think that's what I'm trying to say. And I like that. I like that a lot. I do. Okay, so now we're going to talk about like the aesthetic. We talked about the world building and how the world building is great and wonderful. My bangs look crazy? Chat, let me know my bangs look crazy. Nothing I can do about it once you do, but whatever. We're going to talk about the aesthetic. There's just something so juicy about the aesthetic. I don't know what it is. Retrofuturism on its own is just so good. What's that one that it's like a cartoon, Meet the Johnstons or something? Jetsons? The Jetsons? Great, great aesthetic. Blade Runner? Ooh, yes. Love. I love it. I just love it. The retrofuturism is just so lovely. But then also post-apocalyptic, like, aesthetics are also so good. And you take the both of them and you combine them into one. Don't even get me started. That's exactly what I wanted. And I love it. I just really do. It just looks visually really appealing, even though it's like gross and dirty and grungy. It's like that combination of when we look back at the 1950s and the 1960s and what they were trying to portray themselves as is this post-World War utopia, right? You see a lot of images of like women super finely dressed, men super finely dressed. You have the nuclear family, this idea of perfection and everything is good. And we came back from the war and we came back stronger and better and everything is perfect and great, right? And you have that image and it's very clean. It's very perfect. It's this idealized image. It's a utopia essentially. But then you take all of that and you rip it up. You make it rusty. You dirty it and you darken it and it's just so good. It's just so good. It's like this is truly what's underneath it is this chaos and destruction and carnage. And now it's showing its face. Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. It's just so good. And just like the remnants of the past that used to exist and used to be real still being in the world, the comics and the drawings and the paintings and the Nuka-Cola bottles and the infrastructure and the design of the world, just everything still being there, the old 1950s car look, the robots, like, but it's all mutilated, it's all destroyed, especially when you get to play as characters who existed in the pre-world or the pre-Fallout world, like the character you play in the Sole Survivor in Fallout 4. Like, if you just get into the head of a character who existed in this idealized world with, like, quote unquote, clean energy sources, flying cars or something. They didn't have flying cars. They had cool cars. They just weren't flying. Robots to do all your chores for you. Like all these things that seem like utopian to have lived and existed in that and then to be no less than teleported, more or less, into a world where all of that had been destroyed and then cannibalized into this like darker and grungier world. It's so good. It's so good. I eat it right up. I also love some of the more like dystopian elements. And sometimes I get confused personally on what technically counts as a dystopia and how it's different from a post-apocalyptic universe. My understanding that I've always kind of functioned on for what a dystopia is it is like requires there to be a idealized society that has a darker underbelly. So like something is seen as utopia, but it's dystopian when it actually is darker than everyone thinks. So like iRobot, I guess you could say. It seems like everything is great and beautiful and wonderful, but there's this darker underbelly to it. And I guess Blade Runner would be very similar. I mean, I think about 1984 and Handmaid's Tale. Those are like the pinnacle of dystopian fantasy, or not dystopian fantasy, dystopian novels, right? And in 1984, the world to someone who exists in it is good and perfect and holy. But if you actually look into it more, there is darkness and evil, like rooted in it. So that's kind of when I think about dystopia, that's what it looks like, is there is something clean and polished and pretty that you're looking at, but really there is darkness inside of it. So when I think of like the dystopia aspects of Fallout, the dystopian aspects of it, like the Institute in Fallout 4, they live underground, they're scientists, they're healthy, they're clean, everything is polished, they're still innovating and creating technology and like studying science, and everything seems really good for them. And yet they're kidnapping and killing people, replacing them with synths. And maybe if you're just born there, you don't know everything that's going on, you don't know everything that's happening. Or the vaults. If you get to be in one of those vaults that are good, maybe we'll talk about the vaults briefly next, but if you get to be, by some luck, in a vault that is one of the control vaults, where they actually want you to return to the surface, sort of sane, and repopulate the world. I don't, reacclimation day is like the thing where they go back to the world and live in it. But if you get to be in one of those vaults, that can be like a dystopia, in the sense that you're living in a utopia in the middle of a post-apocalyptic world, and it's not what you think it is. You see that a lot in the TV show. I think we'll maybe talk about that when we get to the TV show, about Lucy, the main character, and her upbringing in a vault, and then how like her understanding of vault life and the surface life, the wasteland, gets reinterpreted. And she has to reanalyze all of it. It's very, very interesting. But that, just like the imagery itself of this post-apocalypse, this retrofuturism, all combined, the dystopia, it just looks so visually appealing, and you get really cool clothes out of it. Normal clothes as well if you want them, but that's lame. You get cool weaponry, just really cool like creatures that you get to look at, just the dilapidated buildings, especially the farther away from cities you get. It's just so, there's something really cool about seeing the world as we know it, especially when they're like LA or Boston, places that we know, and you see it dismantled and like ripped apart. It's just so good. And of course, we're going to talk about the music. How can you talk about the aesthetics of the Fallout games without the music? I don't know who composed the score and stuff for any of the other games, but Fallout 4, Einenzer, Sir, icon. Truly, just iconic. You know, just truly iconic. Like the opening screen and I'm not even going to sing it right because I'm horrible at that, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. If you've played the games, you know what I'm talking about. And how, oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. So all of like the background music that was written for the games, so well done. So well done. So like it really pulls you into it. And then of course you have the classics. And by that, obviously, I mean the classic music. When you're wandering through the wasteland as your character, you have this thing called a Pip-Boy. And it acts as like your menu, your inventory, your quests. And you can also listen to the radio. It is often playing it like our world, our universe, 1950s, 1960s music. And it just has that same kind of effect as the visuals of like this idealized world that these people post-war, post-World War II are trying to portray. But obviously it's a different timeline. And this is where like the parallels between our world and that world kind of get a little convoluted, because it's the aesthetics of the 1950s, but it takes place in the early, like the 2077, I believe is the date the bombs fell, 2077. So instead of it being 1950, it's the 2050s sort of vibe, sort of. Not exactly, but you know what I'm talking about? And the it's not World War II that they're like regaining, like, yeah, they're not rebuilding from World War II. There's another war that happened and is happening with China and Alaska. Remember when I mentioned that? Alaska. So, and this is a war mainly over oil, so far as I can understand. Anyway. But you have that same music. And to us, it connects us, the viewers, the players, into that time. even if it's at a different time in the TV show or the game. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So you have like the ink spots. You have Ella Fitzgerald. You have Bongo Bongo Bongo, I Don't Want to Leave the Congo. Oh no, 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 no. Rocket 69. You have just like all of these very classic songs, some of them which are really upbeat and lively, which is so like jarring and juxtaposing from the show or the game. There's nothing like being in the middle of a firefight with like a bunch of raiders and you've died 17 times and then all of a sudden you're listening to Jabba Jabba Jabba. Something about coffee. I want coffee. I want tea. You know, like there's just nothing quite like it because you know the songs I'm talking about, and even the songs that are like in universe that they made for the game, like Good Neighbor. Even those songs have the 1950s swing kind of vibe to it, you know, jazzier. Anyway, just really well done. It just like fills out the rest of the aesthetic. You have all the visuals, and then you have the sounds from the this score soundtrack, and then you have all of these like 1950s, 1960s style songs that talk about nuclear fallout, like what has happened, because that's kind of what people were fearing in the 1960s in our world. Sorry if I keep bunking this. I forget that it's there, this microphone, because remember how this is the microphone and I'm pretending like this is the microphone? Did you forget? I didn't. Actually, I did. Yeah, it's just a really clever method of storytelling, in my opinion. How they use music to portray certain like feelings. And speaking of storytelling, we're gonna get to that now. So like the quests, the quest lines that you do. And we talked about it just a little about like how some of those smaller quest lines are still really well developed. A lot of them, not all of them. They don't all have to be, but some of them are and they feel really real. But the main storylines for these games are just so compelling, at least to me. And again, I'm going to talk about Fallout 4 mainly because that's the one I know the best. It's the one I've played all the way through multiple times. So, like, whatever, leave me be. So, Fallout 3, you start in a vault, and as a child, and your father is an overseer who's like the people who control the vaults. They oversee the vault, you know? And you kind of go through your life, and then your father leaves and you go to find him. There's a lot of finding people in this world, and very compelling. I think that's very compelling. I think that's pretty cool. But I'm going to talk about Fallout 4 mainly because, again, that's the one I know the most and the best. So in Fallout 4, the main story is you play as either Nate or Nora, and they're a married couple. And they lived before the bombs fell. They lived in this world, and Nate was a war veteran. And of this war that took place in like Alaska and China and the oil and you know. And you play as one or the other. And if you play as the husband, you get to change his name, and your wife's just named Nora. And if you play as her, then your husband's name is Nate, and you get to change your name. But I'll just call them Nate and Nora because it is easiest. It's like their canon name, I guess. So you get to pick which one you play as, and you have a son, and his name is Sean. And on like this one day, just a one random day in 2077, you just happen to be in your house, and this guy comes, and he is essentially like, we have space in our vault if you want to come and be a part of our vault. It's just right up the hill. So you sign up, sign your whole family up, and then like 2 minutes later, the bombs fall. And the bombs fall, and you go to the vault. And you go and you sit in the vault, and they put you in cryo freeze. Okay, maybe you should have read the fine line before you signed. But whatever, you're put in cryo freeze. And at some point, unbeknownst to you, time doesn't really, you know, you're in cryo freeze, you don't really know, time passes. You wake up and from inside your little freeze, and whichever spouse you didn't choose to be. So I always play as the woman because I'm a woman. Hello. And I'm not creative like that. And you see your husband, Nate, and he has the baby, and they are also awoken, and there's these people, and they take Sean, your son, from your spouse and then shoot your spouse and put you back in cryo freeze. Ooh, uh, ooh. And then you wake up again X amount of years later and the world is blown up. The world has been blown up. You're still in your home, but it's completely ruined. And it's like, it was the day before like it was sometime in October, so it was almost Halloween time. So everything is like decorated Halloween, except it's all ruined. It's all in shambles. And you get to see like your robot servant that you had, Cogsworth. He's still around, but he's been around, and you learn that it's been 200 years since the bombs fell. You have been in cryofreeze for 200 years. Isn't that crazy? And so essentially, you go on this long journey trying to find your son and avenge your spouse. And I'm going to spoil it. I'm going to spoil it for you guys, okay? So your journey ends you. No, your journey takes you through like all these different factions. We've talked about like the Brotherhood of Steel. There's one called the Railroad, the Minutemen, and then there's the Institute. I talked a little bit about the Institute. Essentially, they are scientists underground who are making robots of people. They're called synths. And you end up there, and you find out that your son is no longer a baby. You were in cryofreeze after Sean was taken for a long time, and he's now an old man, and he is the leader of the Institute. And depending on the way you play the game or how you view things, the Institute is the villain of this particular story. In my eyes, the Institute is the villain. Disagree if you will, but all the synths try to kill you all the time, no matter who you are. So that kind of makes them seem like a villain to me. So you learn that your son, Sean, who you only ever knew as a baby and have been hunting for at this point, days, maybe even years, depending on how long it takes you as the player to do the quest. You find him, and he is an old man, and he is a cruel, callous old man who is trying to replace the world with synths because he thinks that's better than humanity. And then you have to make the choice whether or not to kill him. Ow. Like, that is just so devastating as just when I first played through it and I was like, wait, what do you mean? Wait, what do you mean that's my son? And I've been hunting for him for hours in real life and days in real life and probably weeks in fake life. I've been looking for him and I vowed to my husband that I would find him and I'd take care of him. What do you mean I have to kill him? To save the world, I have to kill him, my own son. And I've given everything to everyone this whole time, and now I have to give my son up too? Hello? Gosh. Man. And that's one thing that's really fascinating about these games, that they get just so good, is just like the ethical quandaries. You just have to sometimes sit there and go, what is the right choice here? What is the ethical choice here? And sometimes it's really obvious, but sometimes it's not quite so obvious. Like there's another quest line with the Brotherhood of Steel, who are kind of religious fanatics in a sense. It's complicated. I don't really know if I should explain it. Go watch the Frankly Gaming video that he just posted about all of the factions, and he'll tell you about the Brotherhood of Steel and like who they are as characters and people, and as a faction, as a group. But they are severely anti anything that isn't completely human. So they're kind of the antithesis of the Institute. They only think that pure human life, is worth existing. So all the ghouls that exist that have not gone feral, they are all to be exterminated, even though they are still people. All the synths that have no choice in how they were made, and some of the synths are made to replicate people like identically, and so they have thoughts, feelings, actions exactly like a person they were meant to replace, and they don't have a conceptualization that they are not human. They are to be killed ruthlessly by the Brotherhood of Steel and super mutants, but whatever. Super mutants are kind of awful. Some of them, there's one that's pretty cool. Anyway, so they're black and white. They have no moral gray area. And for me, that's really hard as a player to do anything with their group because my companion is Nick Valentine. My companion is always Nick Valentine, and Nick Valentine is a synth. I love Nick Valentine. So doing any one of the Brotherhood's quests is so hard because they're always just mean to Nick Valentine, and that upsets me. And there's stuff going on with them that if you know, you know. But like that's an ethical issue of can I help these people and engage in this faction knowing how they feel about one of my dearest and closest friends, which is that he shouldn't get to live because the Institute created him to replace someone who's been dead for 200 years. You know what I'm saying? It's an ethical quandary. And that's something that Fallout is really good at. And I really appreciate for them. It's just really compelling. It's just really compelling. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the characters. Well, we talked a little bit about the main character in Fallout 4 and how I feel about them. And I have a lot of feelings, obviously. But there are other playable characters, the main characters in each of the video game franchises. There's the Vault Dweller, who's the Vault Dweller in Fallout 1, then the Chosen One in Fallout 2. There's the Lone Wanderer in Fallout 3, the Courier in New Vegas, Vault Dweller in 76, and then the Sole Survivor in Fallout 4. Those are your playable characters. Those are the different ones. And they all have their own storylines. They all have their own history and background. And it's not super in-depth in the sense of you're given as the player the ability to create something that is your own, if that makes sense. So when I play as Nora, or whatever I've named my character in Fallout 4, she can either be super jaded and angry and seeking revenge, or she can be, genuine and kind-hearted and wanting to help people because she's suffered and she wants to help people so they don't suffer. You can really go any which way you want, which is really fun. But they still do have their personalities and their backstories. And I am willing to concede that perhaps the dialogue in Fallout 4 isn't always beautiful and wonderful as much as I wish it would be. And sometimes it can be really confusing and you can end up saying something you don't mean and then someone gets mad at you when you don't want them to be mad at you. But hey, whatever. I know that the dialogue in the other games is a lot more unhinged. It's very unhinged. A lot of the game. I keep calling it a show. I'm talking about the game. Jeez. A lot of the game is incredibly unhinged, and that's okay. That's fine. We actually love it. That's why we love it. But specifically, the main character says a lot of stuff. Some crazy things. But it's okay. We love them for it anyway. Then there's so many non-playable characters that are just so intriguing and so fascinating. Like in Fallout 4, you meet so many great people. I've talked about Nick Valentine. That's my man. I love Nick Valentine. You have Hancock, who is well beloved. You have Piper from Diamond City. Then you have all Preston Garvey, and everyone loves to hate Preston Garvey, but he's a noble man. Like at the end of the day, he's a noble man. And, you can kind of see from his backstory why he does what he does, Like why he holds the values he has. Paladin Dance, you have the other guy who's in the Brotherhood. I mean, even the villains, Kellogg, is incredibly interesting. And, if you're into like actually role playing in games as opposed to just playing it, which is fine, you can do that. But if you're like interested in curating this intrapersonal connection that maybe you don't get to play out in the game because the dialogue is funny, or you don't get to do exactly what you want, but you can understand this tension between a character like the character you're playing and Kellogg, who's the one who steals your son and kills your spouse but then raises your son. And you get to see that, and you get to see his own past and his own history and where he came from, and you live it in his mind through some weird stuff. But just like the tension there, and like giving Kellogg a backstory, and then making the main villain your own child, and like understanding his thought process. There's just so much that's really, really delightful in just the side characters. And then you have the companions, the people that you can choose to come along with you, and you get to learn more about them and engage with them. There's a girl named Kate that you find in like a fighting pit who's great. She's pretty sure she's Scottish. Maybe that's me misremembering or wishful thinking. But there's Kate. She's great. Nick Valentine. Let me talk about Nick Valentine again. His backstory is just so good, especially because he's a synth and his backstory is not his technically. It's someone else's, but because he was created with this history and these feelings in him, he still has this drive for justice and this need for vengeance for his fiance, wife, something like that, that he never knew because he's made out of metal. You know, it's just so fascinating. It's so fascinating. And they all feel so real. Or like this random guy that you learn about through the computer system. When you get to this house that's infested with ghouls, and then you find this computer in the basement, and you were reading this guy's life, essentially, these journal entries that he wrote about how his entire family turned into a ghoul, and then he turned into a ghoul. And it's just like, I don't know, so deep. He's not a companion. I forgot I was talking about companions, but you have other companions. Piper can be your companion. You can just pick up random mercenaries to be your companion, or you can have Dogmeat, who's a dog. Dogmeat is an icon. Everyone loves Dogmeat. If you don't love Dogmeat, what are you doing? He's a dog. He's a good boy. Okay. So, like, if you prefer to play the game just you by yourself, you can have a dog, and it's Dogmeat, and he's good. Anyway, the characters I think are the final nail in the coffin for me as to why I love it so much. I can withstand a lot of bad stuff in a show, like slow pacing, sometimes poor storytelling, CGI problems, production issues. I can forgive a lot of it if the characters are worth caring about. You know, if they are intriguing, complex, interesting, even if they're not necessarily super well written, I can still find myself caring about them. Like, for example, we just talked about House of the Dragon. I don't necessarily love how they've depicted and characterized Alicent Hightower, especially in season 3. She was wibbly wobbly for me in season 2, but I'm still fascinated by her, you know? And, or like shows like Once Upon a Time. The premise of that show is crazy. What is happening in that show, you know? But there are elements of the characters that are so intriguing, like Emma and Hook and Neil and David, etc., Regina, that I watched all 6 seasons of it. I didn't watch the last season, I don't think, but I watched all of it because I cared about the characters. I cared about Ciri in The Witcher so much that I was willing to put up with everything else that happened because I wanted to know what happened with her. Luckily, Fallout isn't like that. They have the characters that kind of stand on their own, but they also have the aesthetic, they have the storytelling, they have the world building, and it all just kind of culminates into this beautiful thing. And you'll get video game enthusiasts who will talk about the gameplay. Girl, I don't care. I don't care how hard the gameplay is. I don't care how stupid it is. I don't care about how the combat works. I'll just do it. I'll just do it. I'll throw a Molotov cocktail here and there. What matters to me is the story. And they have created such a beautiful story that I am always compelled by it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about the games. Like, it's not perfect. They're not perfect, and I don't care. I don't care that the dialogue in Fallout 4 is a little janky. I have a good time anyway. I just make up my own dialogue in my head. Did you ever think about that? Did you ever consider that to be an option? That's the video game, and that's my love for the video game. We'll talk about the TV show now because I love the TV show. I love the TV show. I love the TV show. Can I say it one more time? There's a hair on my microphone. It's a dog hair. I love the TV show. And we've talked here before about adaptations and what makes a good adaptation, what makes a bad adaptation. And video games are notoriously difficult to adapt, especially ones that are so like broad and open in in the sense of Fallout. Like, you could do anything, go anywhere with this story for the Fallout TV show. You could take anything from any of the games and canonize something. But that comes into really dangerous territory when you canonize games that have multiple endings and multiple paths. And not even just multiple, like almost infinitesimal, because like you can choose in the end of Fallout 4, you can choose to side with one of 4 factions or not side with any of them at all. But then for all of these choices, you've also got, well, did you choose to do this in this storyline and this in this storyline or this and and then it's just like so you run into, I forgot to pick my microphone back up. You run into a problem with a TV show and a game so open world of canonizing and then like what's the word I'm looking for? Pushing viewers away who didn't engage with that canon, So especially in these games where you get to pick which character you are in the sense of like Fallout 4, you're Nate or Nora. Well, if in the Fallout TV show they decided to make a Fallout 4 adaptation specifically, and they chose to follow Nate, then Nora canonically dies. And so every time you play the video game now, it feels like, oh, well, I'm just playing a... I'm not, like, none of this matters because it's not really what happens, And they didn't do that in the TV show. They made their own characters and their own setting, and then they just followed the video game mechanics and precedent that was set in the video game. So you're not playing as characters that you've seen before. Are there familiar characters? Dogmeat is in it. Dogmeat's there, but it's a different Dogmeat. I think there's many Dogmeats. Everyone's Dogmeat if you try hard enough, but they have Dogmeat. But most of the other characters who are present are not present in the games. There's House is there. He's a character in Fallout New Vegas. But other than him, there aren't very many like that. The characters you're following, the 3 main characters, which is the Ghoul, Lucy, and Max, they're new. They're new to us. So we get to have this enjoyment of following something new and not feeling like it's going to ruin our own game, And before I continue, I recognize that there are some timeline wibbly-wobbliness, especially in Season 1 with the NCR and Shady Sands. Don't talk to me about that. I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know about timelines. I don't know about any of that. I don't want to say I'm a casual Fallout fan, but as someone who's not like in the sauce of Fallout lore, the video game and the TV show were compatible, very compatible. And I watched it, Season 1, with 2 of my friends who had never played the games before, and they loved it. They loved it so much. And I think that's like awesome to be able to pull in new fans. Like, I tried playing Fallout with one of them, but she got motion sick. So that didn't work. That didn't work for very long. But like to be able to draw in people who aren't fans of the video game, but then also to draw in people who are fans of the video game. Don't think I don't have an anecdote, another one. My dad, huge Fallout player, he also loves the TV show. I watched it with him. It's so good. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. That being set aside, the whole timeline issue, my understanding from fans of the game is that the TV show is really well done. As a fan of the game, the TV show is really well done. It latches on to the aesthetic so well, and not even just the visual one. It has all those songs that we're familiar with. Like, there's an Ink Spot song at the end of every single episode, and I knew all of them, and I loved that. And they have like the visuals, except now it's not animated. It's like, it feels real. Like, it feels like a real representation of our world, and you get to see a dilapidated Santa Monica, and how cool is that? How cool is that? It also, the video game never took itself too seriously. We talked a little bit about the dialogue, and just, there are some absolutely, utterly ridiculous things that happen in the video game. Because it's a video game, you can do what you want. But the TV show said, bet, and they also made it completely ridiculous in so many amazing ways without losing like the genuineness of some of these themes, like ethical decisions around things, or abuse of power, or money and how money manipulates you and makes you do crazy things sometimes, or those other themes that are present and make the video games seem really real and really important. If you get what I'm saying, the show doesn't shy away from those topics and those heartfelt, like heavy moments, but also that it doesn't take itself too seriously. There's like the first episode, there's a massive fight that breaks out, and some pregnant lady gets stabbed in the eyeball and is like running around with like a massive machine gun and a fork in her eye. Like, hello? There's just so much of it that is so ridiculous, but in a great way. One of the main characters kills a guy with a toilet seat lid. Like, hello, that's so funny. But then it just keeps with the vibe of the show, both thematically. The show keeps with the vibe of the video game, both thematically and visually, musically, and just vibe-wise. And it's amazing. It's so fun. And I love the way that they did the three main characters. So you have Walton Goggins, who plays the ghoul, and he is a guy named Cooper Howard. He existed before the bombs. So he existed before the bombs, but then he became a ghoul and has survived all this time as a ghoul in the wasteland. And he's looking for his family. And then you have Lucy, who grew up in one of the vaults as the daughter of an overseer. And you can kind of see the connection between her and the lone wanderer from Fallout 3 in like her upbringing, but it's very different. Even in the sense that her father is taken and she leaves the vault to go find him. It's a similar theme, but Lucy herself she's just so good. She's so well written, and like she's a character who ideologically does not fit into the wasteland. She doesn't understand their world, how it works. She's way too optimistic. She sees things way too cut and dry. Everybody has a capacity to be good, which is not the world that the wasteland is. In the vault, perhaps that's how people portray themselves to be, but that's not what it's like up there. It's not what it's like up there at all. And she doesn't fit in ideologically, but then she just kills it when she's up there. She fits into the world and its survival instinct so well. Somehow she manages to survive everything. It's like she gave all of her points that you get to give to yourself, all your stats, went straight into charisma and intelligence. And then she gave a little bit of strength for herself. And like she works, she knows how to live in this world despite being so juxtaposed to it in her ideology. And then you have Max. Max, I love him. You have Max, who grew up as in the Brotherhood of Steel. He's a scribe in the Brotherhood of Steel. He used to live in this place called Shady Sands. It got blown up, and then he was saved by a paladin and became one of the guys in the Brotherhood. And what's so fascinating about him is he knows how this world works. He understands it like intimately. He knows how people think. He knows what is dangerous. He knows what you can and cannot do. And yet he is so bad at living in it. He and Lucy are like the antithesis of one another. One does not understand the world and yet can survive it, and the other one understands the world and yet doesn't know how to live in it. And so when you partner them together, it's just so good. They're so good. And they fall in love, obviously. Yeah. Don't even question me. They are amazing and I love them. And they just are so cute together, and they're so sweet, because even though Max understands the world, he does still have compassion and empathy. And they're both juxtaposed by the ghoul, who is calloused and hard, and he kills people just for fun, and he just does what he has to do to survive in the way that he wants to survive. At one point he even betrays Lucy, who he has grown to love and care for. In a sense, he betrays her to suit his own needs. You can tell that he feels guilty about it, but he does it. He does it anyway. And she's constantly having to prompt him to do the good thing, the right thing, helping people, saving people, like these are good things. And he's like, why would I do that? And then she always gets in trouble, almost dies, and he has to come save her. It's a sweet little cycle. But like all three of them are vastly different from one another, and they're all three so compelling. And the way that they're different storylines, they're not always together, but whenever they come together and get to be together, it's just wonderful. I love it. They are just very well done. Then you have Hank McLean, who is Lucy's father. He's the main antagonist. You also have House, who's another main antagonist. You have the Brotherhood, and they have their own little tensions, and it's just, I don't even know. It's just really well done. How many times can I say it's well done before you're sick of me saying it? If you are not a Fallout fan, I would still suggest watching the show. And if you are a Fallout fan and you've been like hesitant to watch it, I would say do it. It's very gory. Don't don't let don't let anyone convince you otherwise. It's very gory. It's just like the game. In the game where you get to have a special perk that lets you blow people up. Yeah. Yeah, this is it's the same show. Well, it's a show based off the same thing, so they do that a lot. There's a lot of gore. But it's fun. It's fun gore. It's not like, ooh, yuck, a lot. It's just like, well, this is kind of ridiculous, but in a fun way, you know? Kind of like when, do you remember Supernatural season 1 and 2, where they took themselves a little bit too seriously and they had all the stupid gore stuff going on and it was kind of silly? Yeah, it's kind of like that, except they know that it's silly and they're not taking themselves too seriously about it. But the TV show really just captures the essence of the game in a way that is so enthralling. And the writing is really well done. It's funny, it's serious when it needs to be. They have some really good side characters. Thaddeus is amazing. I love Thaddeus. Yeah, it's just really well done. It understands the world that it's made or it's part of, And you can make an argument that because they messed with the timeline, it doesn't understand the world. I think that people can either make mistakes or want to change things for some reason or another in that regard and it still be understandable. Like it still knows what it's part of. Still knows what world it's part of. I don't know, guys. It has video game logic in the best ways where you're like, that is so unrealistic, but that's okay because it's based off of a video game. And the production design goes absolutely bonkers insane. Like, actually insane. Everything looks so good. I would kill to work on like a set like that. How fun would that be? And it's clear that they had fun. Like, I've not seen any of the behind the scenes stuff for it, but I've seen a couple interviews with the actors and they just look like they're having a good time. They do. And it just looks so well done. And it isn't like CGI isn't like written into every piece of it. They have real sets. They have real sets. And either they're really, really, really good at CGI, which they are because the death claws looked amazing, or they had actual suits of armor for the paladins to wear and the Brotherhood of Steel to wear, at least in some capacity, because those things looked great. All of the the special effects makeup, the special effects editing that they did for the ghouls, for the death claws like I mentioned, for the gore, it all just looks so good. So well done. Everyone who is on the production team of Fallout, you get your flowers. Here's your laurels. You get a round of applause from everyone. Even if you don't like the TV show, you have to admit that it looks great. It looks so good. Also, they do have the video game logic of you have a main quest, but you keep getting sidelined and sidetracked into doing something else. That's very common, and I think that's very silly. I think that's very funny. And you meet so many different characters, and you get to go to so many different places, and it doesn't feel like it's dragging it out. It feels like it's like this is the world. It's how the world works. Before you get to go find your dad, you have to also get eaten by a monster in the water with fingers in its mouth. And then get out and then go find where that thing was born. You have to. You just have to do it. And I'm realizing now as I'm doing this that I forgot to talk about the vaults like I said I would. So maybe I'll do that really quickly. And then, so the idea with the vaults in Fallout is they were made by a place called Vault-Tec, and many of them were experiments, social and scientific experiments run on people under the guise of protection from a nuclear fallout. So several of them were what are called like control experiments. You know, like when you run an experiment, you have a control that makes it so that you know which variable that you're changing, like how it relates back to the control. So like if you have several plants and you're testing what makes them grow, you leave one where you don't do anything to it, or you just give it water. And then like the next one you put fertilizer on it, the next one you put salt on it, the next one you feed it Red Bull or something, you know? And then you base all the findings on those other 3 plants based on your control. It's basic scientific method, I guess. So you have vaults with controls, or control vaults where they're just living. They're just living in there normally, more or less. And so Lucy's vault in the Fallout TV show is a control, sort of. They have some, it's not really an experiment, but they do have some stuff going on there. As far as I can remember, the vault for Fallout 3 was a control, and I think the vault in 76 is also a control. But I can't exactly remember, because it's Vault 76. In case you were wondering, that's why the show is called that, or the game is called that, I think. Anyway, so you have the controls, and then you have all the other ones. Ooh, and some of them are crazy. I don't remember. I'll put it somewhere here or in the description. There is, I think it's Frankly Gaming that does an entire video. It's like 3 hours long of all of the vaults and their experiments explained. Some of them are insane. Like there's one where everyone in the vault, it's like 99 men and 1 woman. I would rather shoot myself. And there's one where it's 99 women and 1 man. Okay. How is that different? Well, it's very different. There's one where they just leave a leopard in there with them or something. I don't know. There's like the one you are in Fallout 4, Vault 111. It's a test of cryogenetics. You're frozen, right? And so it's testing like how long the human body can survive in cryogenesis. But there are just some crazy like experiments, like genuine experiments done on people. And the one that they find in Fallout Season 1, it's like they were running experiments on women. I think it's Fallout or Vault 5 maybe, but they're running experiments on women to try to make them give birth to crazy things, and then those crazy things kept cannibalizing the women or something. And then it gets overrun by people from Shady Sands, and then it's just complicated. But like, you see what I'm saying? There's like crazy stuff that they're doing, and the vaults are dystopian in this sense, you know? They're not all picture perfect. Even if you thought they were going into it, they're still, you probably died in a vault. More likely than you died on the surface, because so many people on the surface survived. So many people did. But in the vaults, like, brother, they're probably running an experiment on you or poisoning you or something. Like, geez. Anyway, so that's the vaults. In conclusion, Fallout is an amazing game. I think they've done a beautiful job, like making the game and making it still enjoyable so many years later. Like I've been playing Fallout 4 for like 10 years and I still love it. I still go back to it. And I think they did a great job with the TV show, and I'm so excited for season 3. Every now and again I just go back and rewatch it because it's so good, and you can just keep rewatching it and finding new things. It's so fun. I encourage you to look up some of those deep dive lore videos. Again, putting their names in the description down below so you can find them. Just really, really well done. And if you want to play the game, I suggest playing the game. It's a good time. Try not to get motion sick. Take a Dramamine. I don't know. And watch the TV show. It's really, really good. And I think you'll enjoy it. Anyway, that's all I had for today. I hope that you enjoyed my conversation about the Fallout game and TV show. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think if you've played it or you've seen it. I'm always open to alternate opinions. If you hated the TV show, I don't get it, but let me know why. If you hate the games, let me know why. If you think they suck, let me know why. If you love them, let me know why. I love it when things are loved. I love when love happens. Anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to me again. I appreciate it. Thanks for all of the comments on the last video. I love to know what you guys think about that one. I still feel like a little bit like I'm crazy, but I feel less like I'm crazy now. Yeah, and I hope to see you in the next one I don't know if the next one after this is gonna be the Skyrim one. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. We'll see. But I do want to talk about Skyrim eventually. As of now, I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and please stay safe out there. That's going to be the end of this video. I don't ever really know how to end these. I guess I'll say this. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you have something to say, leave a comment. If you don't have something to say, leave a smiley face. That's fine too. And if you want to hear more from me for some reason, just subscribe or don't. Find me in 10 years when I have 30 subscribers. And to the 22 of you, unbelievable. Thank you. Thank you for being here. That's amazing. What do you mean there's 22 of you who want to know what I have to say every couple of weeks about something? Anyway, thank you guys for being here. I hope you have a good rest of your day. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. You can... Sorry, I had to check to make sure my candle wasn't burning anything down. I don't know why I got scared about that really quick. You have... There's about... Did I get it? Did I get it?